I clutched my side, each breath sending waves of pain through my body as Mom drove me to the emergency room. "Remember Olivia," she said, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. "You were running down the stairs and tripped. That's all. It was an accident." I wanted to scream at her, tell her we both knew exactly what happened. How Marcus had shoved me from behind when I refused to give him access to my college savings account. How she'd stood there, frozen, as I tumbled down 14 stairs, my body crashing against each step before landing in a crumpled heap at the bottom. But I stayed quiet. At 19, I'd learned that silence was safer. The emergency room was surprisingly empty for a Thursday night. A nurse with kind eyes and graying hair led us to an examination room, introducing herself as Sarah. She helped me onto the bed, noticing how I winced with each movement. "Can you tell me what happened, sweetheart?" she asked, her pen poised over the admission form. Mom jumped in before I could speak. She was running down the stairs, wasn't paying attention. "You know how teenagers are, always in a rush." She laughed, but it sounded hollow. Nurse Sarah's eyes never left my face. "Is that what happened, Olivia?" I opened my mouth, but Mom's warning look stopped me. "Yes," I whispered. "I fell." The nurse made a note, then asked Mom to step out so she could examine me. "Hospital policy," she said firmly when Mom tried to protest. "We need to check for injuries privately." Once Mom left, Nurse Sarah's demeanor changed. "Olivia," she said softly, "I need you to be honest with me. Did someone push you down those stairs?" Tears welled up in my eyes, but I blinked them back. "I can't," I whispered. "He'll know if I tell." She nodded understanding, then began her examination. When she pressed against my ribs, I gasped in pain. "We'll need x-rays," she said. "Several of them." The x-ray room was cold, but the technician was gentle as she positioned me. Each movement was agony, but I bit my lip and endured it. I'd had worse. While we waited for the results, Nurse Sarah kept Mom occupied with paperwork in the waiting area. She brought me ice for my bruises and spoke in soothing tones about nothing in particular, but I could see something brewing behind her professional demeanor. When the x-rays came back, her face changed. She stared at the images for a long time, then called in Dr. Martinez. They spoke in hushed tones, pointing at various spots on the illuminated screen. "Olivia," Dr. Martinez said finally, "these x-rays show something concerning. Not just today's injuries, but evidence of previous fractures, some partially healed, others that never set properly. Can you explain this?" I felt the blood drain from my face. I knew about some of those injuries. The time Marcus had twisted my arm behind my back, the accidental push into the kitchen counter, but I'd never been to a doctor for them. Mom always said we could handle it at home. "I'm clumsy," I stammered, the rehearsed excuse feeling like ash in my mouth. "I fall a lot." Nurse Sarah sat beside me, her voice gentle but firm. "These aren't falling injuries, honey. We've seen this pattern before. These are defensive wounds. Someone has been hurting you, and from the look of these x-rays, it's been going on for quite a while." My carefully constructed wall of denial began to crack. Years of hidden bruises, explained away injuries, and silent tears threatened to spill out. Nurse Sarah held my hand, her touch warm and reassuring. "We can help you," she said. "But you need to tell us the truth. Was it your stepfather who pushed you down those stairs today?" In that moment, looking into her compassionate eyes, I made a decision. I was tired of living in fear, tired of protecting the man who had terrorized me for the past 5 years while my mother looked the other way. I squeezed Nurse Sarah's hand and nodded, tears finally breaking free. "Yes," I whispered. "Marcus pushed me, and it wasn't the first time." She pulled out her phone, her expression resolute. "I'm calling someone who can help. You're not going back to that house tonight, Olivia. You're safe now." As she dialed, I closed my eyes, exhausted but somehow lighter. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe, despite my broken ribs. Someone finally saw the truth, and they weren't going to look away. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. A police officer, Detective Lisa Torres, arrived and took my statement while Nurse Sarah stayed by my side, her presence keeping me grounded. Mom wasn't allowed in the room during the interview, and I could hear her protesting in the hallway. "These injuries tell a story," Detective Torres said, examining the x-rays. "Multiple fractures at different stages of healing. This isn't a pattern we see with accidents." I told her everything. About how Marcus came into my life when I was 14, charming and kind at first. How things changed after the wedding. starting with small incidents, a grip too tight on my arm, a playful shove that was anything but playful. How it escalated over the years, and how Mom always found ways to explain it away. "He controls all our money," I explained, my voice shaking. "That's what started today's incident. I have a savings account from my grandmother, and he wanted access to it. When I refused, he pushed you down the stairs," Detective Torres finished, her pen moving steadily across her notepad. "My mom saw it happen," I added quietly. "She just stood there." A social worker named Maya joined us, explaining that they couldn't let me return home. "We have a safe house where you can stay tonight," she said. "We'll help you figure out the next steps." That's when Mom burst into the room, her face tear-streaked but angry. "This is ridiculous. Marcus would never hurt Olivia intentionally. She's making this into something it's not." Nurse Sarah stepped between us protectively. "Mrs. Crawford, your daughter has multiple injuries consistent with long-term abuse. As medical professionals, we're mandated reporters." "You don't understand," Mom pleaded. "Marcus has a temper sometimes, but he loves us. Olivia just needs to learn not to provoke him." Her words hit me like another push down the stairs. Detective Torres must have noticed my reaction because she firmly escorted Mom from the room. Maya helped me gather my things while explaining what would happen next. "We're filing an emergency protective order," she said. "Marcus will be arrested tonight, and you'll be safe at our facility." "But what about my college fund?" I asked, suddenly remembering what had started all this. "If he gets access, we'll help you secure your accounts," Maya assured me. "You're legally an adult, and that money is yours." As they wheeled me out of the emergency room, hospital policy, despite my insistence that I could walk, I saw Mom standing with Marcus by the entrance. He must have shown up while they were processing my paperwork. His face was a mask of concerned confusion, the same look he perfected over years of fooling everyone around us. But this time was different. This time, there were X-rays that showed the truth. There were professionals who could see through his act. "You're going to regret this," he called out as they loaded me into Maya's car. "After everything I've done for you." Detective Torres stepped between us, her hand resting meaningfully on her badge. "Mr. Crawford, I suggest you refrain from making threats. We have enough evidence here for multiple felony charges." As we drove away, I watched Mom clutching Marcus's arm in the rearview mirror, both of them growing smaller until they disappeared. Nurse Sarah had slipped me her personal number, written on the back of a care instruction sheet. "Call me if you need anything," she'd said. "You're not alone anymore." At the safe house, a peaceful building with security cameras and coded entries, Maya showed me to a small but comfortable room. "Get some rest," she said. "Tomorrow, we'll start working on a long-term plan." That night, despite the pain in my ribs and the uncertainty of my future, I slept better than I had in years. For the first time since Marcus entered our lives, I didn't have to listen for footsteps in the hallway or worry about what might trigger his next explosion. My phone buzzed with texts from Mom throughout the night. "Please come home. We can work this out. Marcus is devastated. How could you do this to him? You're tearing this family apart." I turned off my phone and looked out the window at the star-filled sky. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but tonight I was safe. Tonight, thanks to a nurse who refused to look the other way, I was finally free. 3 months later, I sat in the courthouse, my hands steady as I testified about years of abuse. Nurse Sarah sat in the gallery, having taken a personal day to support me. She'd become more than just the nurse who helped me escape. She was my anchor through the storm that followed. Marcus sat with his lawyer, still playing the role of the misunderstood stepfather. Mom was beside him, but she looked smaller somehow, less certain than she had that night at the hospital. The evidence was impossible to ignore. My X-rays displayed on a large screen, showing years of systematic abuse, each injury dated and documented. The pattern of injuries, the medical expert testified, is consistent with ongoing physical abuse, not accidental falls or clumsiness. My grandmother arrived from Florida to support me, fury in her eyes when she learned what had happened to her granddaughter. She'd set up that savings account to protect my future, never imagining it would become the catalyst for my escape. Now she sat behind me, her presence giving me strength. "You did the right thing," she whispered during a break. "I wish I had known sooner." The trial lasted 4 days. Marcus's lawyer tried to paint me as a rebellious teenager making false accusations, but the medical evidence told a different story. Detective Torres presented a thorough case, including statements from neighbors who had heard arguments and suspected something was wrong, but never reported it. When the verdict came in, Marcus was sentenced to 7 years in prison. The judge also granted a permanent restraining order protecting me from both him and, at my request, my mother. Her failure to protect me, her active participation in covering up the abuse, had severed our relationship beyond repair. "You have shown remarkable courage," the judge said to me. "This court hopes you can now begin to heal and build the life you deserve." Outside the courthouse, Nurse Sarah hugged me carefully, mindful of my still healing ribs. "I'm so proud of you," she said. "You know, in 20 years of nursing, I've seen too many people trapped in situations like yours. Not all of them find the strength to break free." My grandmother had insisted I move to Florida with her, where she'd already enrolled me in a local college. "Your savings account is intact," she assured me. "Marcus never got his hands on it. That money will help you build a new life." That evening, I packed my belongings from the safe house where I'd spent the past 3 months. Maya helped me carry boxes to my grandmother's car, pausing to hand me a card with contact information for a trauma counselor in Florida. "You're one of our success stories," she said, smiling. "But healing takes time. Don't be afraid to ask for help." As we prepared to leave for Florida, Mom made one last attempt to contact me, sending a message through my grandmother. I didn't know what else to do. I was scared too. "Please forgive me." But I wasn't ready for forgiveness. Maybe someday I'd be able to understand her choices, but for now, I needed to focus on my own healing. The drive to Florida with my grandmother was peaceful. We talked about my plans for college, my dreams of becoming a social worker, inspired by the people who had helped me escape. Sometimes we just sat in comfortable silence, watching the landscape change from familiar to new. 6 months later, I stood in front of a group of nursing students at my local college, sharing my story as part of their training on recognizing signs of abuse. Nurse Sarah had connected me with the program director, suggesting that my experience could help future healthcare workers understand the importance of their role. Sometimes, I told them, all it takes is one person willing to look beyond the surface, to ask the right questions to show someone they're not alone. One person who refuses to accept "I fell" as an explanation when the evidence says otherwise. After the presentation, a student approached me. "How did you find the courage to speak up?" she asked. I thought about that night in the emergency room, about Nurse Sarah's gentle persistence, about Detective Torres's unwavering support, about Maya's quiet strength, and about my grandmother's unconditional love. "I didn't find courage all at once," I answered. "Sometimes courage finds you when someone else is brave enough to stand beside you and say, 'This isn't right, and I'm going to help you.'" Looking out at the future nurses, I saw in their faces the same determination I had seen in Nurse Sarah's eyes that night, and I knew that somewhere another survivor would find their voice because someone cared enough to listen. My ribs had healed, but the real healing was in knowing I had broken the cycle of abuse. I was safe, I was free, and I was helping others find their way to freedom too. Sometimes the worst moments in our lives lead us to our true purpose. Mine had led me here, and I wouldn't waste the chance I've been given. "They're just filthy farm animals. The HOA needs to know what you're hiding in there." My mother-in-law's voice echoed through my phone, dripping with satisfaction. I stood in my kitchen, staring at the formal complaint letter from the Homeowners Association about my unauthorized livestock operation. My name is Olivia Parker, and at 34, I never expected to be fighting for my daughter's therapy animals. The 3 Holland Lop rabbits, Maple, Sage, and River, weren't just pets. They were vital partners in managing my 8-year-old daughter Emma's anxiety disorder. "These are certified therapy animals, Linda," I replied, keeping my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. "You know this? You've seen Emma's progress since we got them." "Progress?" Linda scoffed. "All I see is my granddaughter playing with dirty farm animals instead of getting proper help. I've told Marcus you're just enabling her." I gripped the kitchen counter, my knuckles turning white. My husband Marcus was away on a business trip, and Linda had chosen this moment to strike. The HOA letter demanded immediate removal of all livestock from the property, citing complaints about commercial breeding operations in a residential area. The irony was bitter. These rabbits had transformed Emma's life. 2 years of traditional therapy yielded minimal results, so our pediatrician suggested animal-assisted therapy. The change was remarkable. Emma, who once couldn't handle school without panic attacks, was thriving in her third-grade class. But Linda never approved. At every family dinner, she'd made snide comments about real therapy and proper medication. Now she'd gone too far. "Did you take pictures of our backyard?" I asked, noticing the grainy photos attached to the HOA complaint. They showed our rabbit's enclosure from an angle that was only possible from Linda's weekly visits. "Someone had to do something," she said smugly. "Those animals are a health hazard, and don't think I haven't noticed how you're turning my granddaughter against modern medicine." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean, against modern medicine?" "Please," Linda sneered. "Ever since you got those rodents, Emma stopped taking her pills. While cleaning her room last week, I found them hidden in her drawer." The room spun slightly. Emma's drawer. Linda had been going through her things when she visited. And what pills was she talking about? Emma wasn't on any medication. We decided with her doctor to try therapy first. "What pills, Linda?" My voice was barely a whisper. The silence on the other end lasted a beat too long. "The ones I've been giving her, of course. Someone had to help her since you wouldn't." The implications hit me like a truck. My mother-in-law had been secretly medicating my daughter. The rabbits weren't the real issue. They were just her way of distracting from something much worse. I ended the call without another word and immediately dialed Emma's pediatrician, Dr. Sarah Thompson. As I explained the situation, her professional demeanor cracked. "Mrs. Parker, I need you to bring Emma in immediately. We need to run tests to determine whether someone's been giving her unauthorized medication. This could explain some unusual blood work results from her last checkup." The next few hours were a blur. Emma's blood tests revealed traces of anxiety medication, prescription drugs that neither Marcus nor I had authorized. Her eyes narrowed when I showed Dr. Thompson the HOA complaint about the rabbits. "This isn't about animals, Mrs. Parker. This is about control. These rabbits have been documented in Emma's therapy progress reports. They're legally protected service animals. But more importantly, we must discuss pressing charges about the unauthorized medication." I sat in the sterile exam room, holding Emma's hand while she petted Maple, her favorite therapy rabbit we brought along. The gentle thumping of the rabbit's foot against the exam table matched my daughter's calming breaths, a technique her animal therapy had taught her. "Mommy?" Emma whispered. "Is Grandma Linda why I felt so weird after her visits?" My heart shattered. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "She said they were special vitamins. They'd make me normal like other kids but made me feel fuzzy and tired. That's why I started hiding them." Dr. Thompson documented everything, her face growing grimmer with each detail. The medical records would show not just Emma's progress with animal therapy, but also the unauthorized medication's effects on her system. The HOA complaint suddenly felt trivial compared to what we'd uncovered. Linda hadn't gone after the rabbits because she thought they were farm animals. She'd done it because they represented her loss of control over Emma's treatment. As we drove home, I called Marcus. His business trip would have to end early. "We need to talk about your mother," I said, my voice shaking, "and about what she's been doing to Emma." The HOA letter sat on my kitchen counter, now evidence in a much more extensive investigation. Linda had tried to take away Emma's therapy rabbits, but instead, she'd exposed her dangerous interference in my daughter's healthcare. I watched through the window as Emma sat in her therapy corner, all 3 rabbits surrounding her like furry guardians. She was calm, centered, and safe. Everything Linda had tried to disrupt with her unauthorized pills and false complaints. My phone buzzed with another call from Linda, but I let it go to voicemail. We had medical board meetings to prepare for. This time, the records would reveal much more than just the legitimacy of our therapy animals. The medical board hearing room felt suffocating despite its size. I sat straight-backed in my chair, a thick folder of evidence in front of me, while Emma's therapy rabbit Maple nestled calmly in her certified support animal vest beside us. The irony wasn't lost on me. The animal Linda had tried to banish was now a key witness to her misconduct. Marcus sat next to me, his face drawn and pale. He hadn't spoken to his mother since the blood test results returned. "I trusted her," he'd whispered the night before. "She was a nurse for 30 years. I never thought she'd." The door opened and Linda swept in with her lawyer. She traded her usual designer outfits for a conservative blue suit, playing the role of concerned grandmother to perfection. Her eyes narrowed when she saw Maple, but she quickly composed her face into a sympathetic smile. "I was only trying to help," she announced to the room before anyone could speak. "A grandmother has rights too." Dr. Thompson, who sat with the medical board panel, cleared her throat. "Mrs. Wilson, you administered prescription medication to a minor without parental consent or medical authorization. That's not help, that's abuse." I watched Linda's facade crack slightly. "Those rabbits are the real abuse," she snapped. "My granddaughter needs real medicine, not emotional support rodents." The head of the medical board, Dr. Chen, opened a thick file. "Let's discuss the medications found in Emma's system. According to these reports, you obtained these prescriptions through your old nursing contacts." Linda shifted uncomfortably. Emma needed help. Her mother, she shot me a venomous look, was too busy playing with bunnies to see it. "I have Emma's progress reports here," Dr. Thompson interjected, pulling out several charts. "Since beginning animal-assisted therapy, her anxiety levels have decreased by 60%. Her school attendance is perfect, and her teachers report significant improvement in social interaction." "Until the unauthorized medication began," Dr. Chen added, pointing to a timeline. "Mrs. Wilson, these pills you were giving Emma directly counteracted her therapy progress. The side effects could have been devastating." Marcus finally spoke, his voice rough. "Mom, how could you? She's 8 years old." "Oh please," Linda scoffed. "I raised you without all this therapy nonsense and you turned out fine. Emma needs discipline, not coddling." "Mrs. Wilson," Dr. Chen interrupted, "your nursing license was suspended 10 years ago for similar unauthorized medication distribution. Did you disclose this to your son and daughter-in-law?" The room went silent. Marcus turned to stare at his mother, shock written across his face. "What?" I felt the pieces clicking into place. Linda's obsession with proper medicine, her dismissal of alternative therapies, and her need for control. She wasn't just fighting against Emma's therapy animals. She was trying to prove she was still correct, in charge, and the medical professional she'd once been. That was different. Linda protested, but her confidence cracked. Those patients needed help too. Sometimes rules get in the way of proper treatment. Rules like parental consent. Dr. Thompson asked sharply, or medical licensing laws. The medical board members exchanged glances. Dr. Chen shuffled some papers, then looked directly at Linda. "We have enough evidence to proceed with criminal charges. However, given your history and family connection, we offer an alternative." Linda leaned forward eagerly, but her hope was premature. "Full psychological evaluation," Dr. Chen continued. "Surrender of all remaining prescription medications in your possession. No unsupervised contact with minors, including your granddaughter, and mandatory counseling to address your compulsive interference in medical matters." "This is ridiculous," Linda burst out. "I was helping. Those rabbits, they're just pets. Emma needs real treatment." As if on cue, Emma, who had been quietly petting Maple throughout the hearing, spoke up. "Grandma, Maple helps me be brave. The pills you gave me made me scared." Linda recoiled as if slapped. She seemed to see her granddaughter for the first time, not as a problem to be fixed, but as a child she'd hurt. "The HOA has already withdrawn their complaint about the therapy animals," I added quietly. "They were quite interested in learning about the false reports and unauthorized photography of a minor's medical support animals." Marcus stood up, his decision visible in his stance. "Take the deal, Mom. Get help. Because if you don't, we'll press charges, and Emma's rabbits will still be there, helping her heal from what you did." The next hour was a blur of paperwork and formal statements. Linda signed the medical board's agreement, her hand shaking slightly. Her lawyer quickly ushered her out, but not before she threw one last look at Emma, a mix of defiance and something that might have been regrettable. As we left the hearing room, Emma hugged Maple closer. "Can we go home to Sage and River now?" "Of course, sweetheart," I said, watching as she walked ahead with Marcus. The rabbit's presence kept her calm despite the stressful day. Dr. Thompson gently caught my arm. "The therapy animals were never the real problem," she said quietly. "They just made it impossible for Linda to hide what she was doing. Animals have a way of bringing truth to light." I nodded, thinking of how Emma's bond with her rabbits had given her the strength to speak up about the special vitamins. Sometimes the best medicine doesn't come in pills at all. 6 months after the medical board hearing, our home regained rhythm. The therapy rabbit's enclosure in our backyard had been upgraded, now featuring a beautiful garden space where Emma spent her afternoons doing homework surrounded by her furry supporters. The changes in our family were as dramatic as the seasons. Linda had been required to move out of state for her intensive therapy program, and Marcus had finally started his counseling to process his mother's betrayal. The weekly family dinners she had once dominated were replaced by peaceful evenings where Emma taught us the gentle handling techniques she'd learned in her animal therapy sessions. "Look, Mom," Emma called out one Saturday morning as Maple hopped through a miniature agility course we'd set up. She remembers all her training. I watched from the patio, coffee in hand, as my daughter guided her therapy rabbit through tunnels and over small jumps. Her confidence had bloomed in the past months, nurtured by the unconditional support of her animal companions. The anxiety that once kept her from participating in school activities had given way to a quiet strength. The HOA president, Mrs. Martinez, stopped by our fence, smiling at the scene. "Emma's rabbit program has inspired the board to revise our pet policies," she said. "We're now officially therapy animal friendly. Several families have already applied for certification." It was a small victory, but a meaningful one. Linda's attempt to remove our rabbits had backfired spectacularly, leading to greater acceptance and understanding in our community. Marcus joined me on the patio, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "Mom's counselor called," he said quietly. "She's finally talking about what led to her license suspension. She's been self-medicating for years." I squeezed his hand, knowing how hard these revelations had been. "How are you doing with all of it?" He watched Emma demonstrate to Mrs. Martinez how Sage helped her practice deep breathing during anxiety attacks. "I'm angry she hurt Emma," he admitted. "But mostly, I'm grateful we caught it when we did. These rabbits," he gestured to where River was gently nudging Emma's hand for treats, "they'd probably saved our daughter from years of hidden trauma." The last update we'd received about Linda came through her lawyer. She completed 3 months of her program and was beginning to understand the gravity of her actions. She'd sent a letter, which we decided to save until Emma was older. Some wounds needed time and distance to heal. "Mommy, can we show Mrs. Martinez the scrapbook?" Emma called out, already running inside to get the photo album she'd been working on. It documented her journey with the therapy rabbits, from their first meeting to their recent certification renewal. As Emma proudly showed off her pictures, I noticed something remarkable. Not a single photo showed fear or anxiety. Each image captured moments of connection, trust, and healing. The rabbits weren't just pets or therapy animals. They were partners in Emma's journey to wellness. The doorbell rang, and I opened it to find Dr. Thompson making her quarterly check-in. These visits had become more social than medical, as Emma's progress had exceeded all expectations. "I'm presenting Emma's case at the National Child Psychology Conference," she announced, watching Emma demonstrate training techniques to Mrs. Martinez. Her success with animal-assisted therapy is groundbreaking, especially considering the interference she overcame. The word interference hung in the air, a gentle reminder of Linda's actions, but even that couldn't overshadow the pride I felt watching Emma confidently share her knowledge with others. Later that evening, as I helped Emma feed the rabbits their dinner, she asked the question I'd been expecting for months. "Do you think Grandma Linda will ever meet Maple, Sage, and River again?" I measured my words carefully. "That depends on a lot of things, sweetheart. But what matters is that you feel safe and happy. These rabbits are part of your healing journey, and anyone who wants to be in your life needs to respect that." She nodded, wise beyond her years. "The rabbits always know when I'm worried," she said, stroking River's soft ears. "They don't try to fix me like Grandma did. They stay with me until I feel better." As the sun set over our backyard, casting long shadows through the rabbit enclosure, I realized that sometimes the best medicine isn't found in pills or prescriptions. Sometimes it comes with soft fur, gentle eyes, and the patience to sit quietly with someone until their storms pass. The medical records that had exposed Linda's deception now served a different purpose. Proof that love, understanding, and the right support system could overcome even the most well-intentioned interference. Our therapy rabbits hadn't just saved Emma from unauthorized medication. They'd shown our entire family the power of accepting someone precisely as they are. Emma gathered her furry friends for their evening routine, her voice clear and confident as she sang them their favorite bedtime song. The rabbits settled around her, a protective circle of unconditional love. While Marcus and I watched from the patio, grateful for these tiny creatures who had brought such immense healing to our home. Your kids are too noisy. Get them out of here. Amanda's voice cut through the cheerful atmosphere of the family BBQ like a knife. They're ruining everything, as usual. I stood frozen, watching my sister-in-law's face contorted with rage as she pointed at my twins, Lucy and Jack, playing tag with their cousins in the backyard. My name is Olivia, and at 34, I never thought I'd be publicly humiliated at a family gathering by the woman who'd once been my bridesmaid. Amanda, they're just playing, I said calmly, though my heart was racing. All the kids are running around, not just mine. No, she snapped, her perfectly manicured finger jabbing in my direction. Your kids are always the problem. They're wild and undisciplined. This is supposed to be a sophisticated family gathering, not a circus. The other guests have fallen silent, their paper plates of half-eaten burgers forgotten as they watched the scene unfold. My husband Tom, Amanda's brother, was inside getting drinks and had missed the start of his sister's latest tirade. Your precious twins have been nothing but trouble since they were born, Amanda continued, her voice dripping with disdain. Always crying, always making noise. Now look at them, running around like animals. I glanced at my 6-year-olds who had stopped playing and were now huddled together, confusion and hurt evident on their tiny faces. Lucy's lower lip trembled while Jack wrapped a protective arm around his sister. The sight broke my heart. That's enough, I said firmly, moving toward my children. They're kids being kids. If you can't handle fat. You're right, I can't handle it. Amanda interrupted, her face flushed. This is my house, my BBQ, and I want you and your unruly children out. Now, my mother-in-law Margaret, who'd been hovering nearby, finally spoke up. Amanda, dear, don't you think you're overreacting? They're just. Don't start, Mom. Amanda cut her off. You always defend them. But this is my house, my rules, and I say they need to leave. I felt a familiar knot form in my stomach. This wasn't the first time Amanda had targeted my children, but it was the first time she'd done it so publicly. Ever since Tom and I had announced my pregnancy with the twins, she'd made it clear she thought we were ruining the family's image. According to her, one child was acceptable, but twins were excessive and attention-seeking. Tom emerged from the house, carrying drinks, immediately sensed the tension. What's going on? Your sister is kicking us out, I said quietly, gathering my children close. Our presence is ruining her sophisticated BBQ. Amanda, what the hell? Tom started, but I touched his arm. Don't, I whispered. Let's just go. As we gathered our things, Amanda stood triumphantly by the grill, a smug smile on her lips. Oh, and by the way, she called out as we headed toward the gate. This might be a good time to tell you that children aren't welcome at my wedding next month. I want it to be perfect, and we all know that's impossible with your two around. I felt Tom stiffen beside me, but I kept walking. The twins were too quiet now, and I could feel their little hands gripping mine tightly. As we reached our car, I heard Margaret's voice raised in an argument with Amanda, but I didn't turn back. The drive home was silent except for Lucy's occasional sniffles. Tom's knuckles were white on the steering wheel, and I could practically hear him grinding his teeth. Finally, Jack spoke up from the backseat. Mommy, why does Aunt Amanda hate us? The question hung in the air like a heavy cloud. I turned in my seat to face my children, forcing a smile. She doesn't hate you, sweetie. Some people don't know how to handle the joy and energy children bring. But we were just playing, Lucy protested, wiping her eyes. Like Cousin Emma and Cousin Ben. They were running too. I know, baby, I sighed. I know. Later that night, after putting the twins to bed with extra hugs and stories, I sat on our patio scrolling through my phone. A text from Margaret popped up. I'm so sorry about today. Amanda was completely out of line. Please don't let this affect your relationship with the family. As I stared at the message, another notification appeared. A wedding planning email Amanda had sent to the entire family. In the elegant script, it was a reminder about her adults-only ceremony and reception, followed by a pointed note about maintaining the sophisticated atmosphere of the celebration. I showed the email to Tom, who had been unusually quiet since we got home. He read it, then tossed his phone onto the cushions with a frustrated grunt. She's gone too far this time. Live first, the BBQ. Are we now explicitly banning our kids from her wedding? They're her only niece and nephew. I nodded, my mind already working. You know what's interesting? I said slowly. Amanda's perfect wedding is being held at the country club where I used to work during college. The same country club where I helped plan and coordinate over 50 weddings. Tom looked at me, a glimmer of understanding crossing his face. The country club where you still have friends in management? Exactly, I replied, picking up my phone. And you know what else? Remember that gorgeous designer wedding dress she's been bragging about? The one she got for a steal from that boutique going out of business. Yeah, what about it? I smiled, opening my contacts list. Well, let's just say I know something about that dress that Amanda doesn't. And in exactly 1 month, she will learn why it's never wise to mess with a mother protecting her cubs. As I dialed a familiar number, I thought about my twins sleeping upstairs, their hearts hurt by their aunt's cruelty. Amanda wanted a perfect wedding. She was about to learn that perfection comes at a price, and karma has a way of collecting its debts with interest. The phone rang twice before a friendly voice answered. Hello, Claire. It's Olivia. Remember that favor you owe me? I think it's time to cash it in. The next few weeks passed in a blur of wedding preparations, not mine to make, of course. But I watched from the sidelines as Amanda's social media exploded with updates about her perfect day. Every post was a reminder of her cruelty toward my children, who still occasionally asked why they couldn't attend their aunt's wedding. She posted, I'm getting coffee with my wonderful wedding planner. One morning, everything must be perfect. I smiled at my phone, knowing what she did. My old friend Claire, now the events director at the country club, had been keeping me updated on Amanda's increasingly demanding behavior. The staff had started calling her Hurricane Amanda behind her back. You won't believe what your SIL did today, Claire texted me. She made 3 servers cry during the menu tasting and demanded we replace all our chair covers because they're not the right shade of ivory. I was in the middle of responding when my mother-in-law called. Olivia, Margaret's voice was tired. I need to talk to you about Amanda's wedding. What's wrong, Margaret? She paused, searching for words. She's becoming impossible. She screamed at the florist yesterday because the sample roses were too pink. The poor woman quit on the spot. I made a sympathetic noise, though internally, I wasn't surprised. That sounds stressful. But that's not why I'm calling, Margaret continued. She's been telling everyone you declined to attend because you're jealous of her perfect wedding. She's painting you as the villain, dear. I gripped my phone tighter. What exactly is she saying? That you're bitter because your wedding was small and simple, while hers is going to be the event of the season. She's even suggesting you tried to sabotage her by talking to your old contacts at the country club. If only she knew. Don't worry about me, Margaret, I said calmly. Everything will work out exactly as it should. 2 weeks before the wedding, my plan started falling into place. Claire called to confirm that everything was arranged. The timeline you requested is set, she said, barely containing her excitement. And you'll never believe what we discovered about that designer dress she's been bragging about. I listened, a slow smile spreading across my face. Are you sure? Positive. We have the proof ready to go. Amanda hosted a rehearsal dinner at the country club the day before the wedding. Tom attended alone while I stayed home with the twins. When he returned, his expression was dark. She spent the whole evening bragging about how perfect tomorrow will be, he said, loosening his tie. She even made a toast about how some people couldn't handle her level of sophistication, looking right at my empty seat next to her. I patted his hand. Just wait until tomorrow, honey. What exactly are you planning, Liv? Let's just say Amanda's perfect day is going to be memorable for everyone. I replied, checking my phone as another text from Claire came through. Very memorable indeed. The morning of the wedding arrived bright and clear. I dressed carefully in the outfit I'd chosen weeks ago, a sophisticated cream pantsuit I knew would photograph beautifully. As I applied my makeup, I thought about Amanda's last text to the family group chat. Can't wait for everyone to witness the most perfect wedding they've ever seen. Well, almost everyone. Tom kissed me goodbye and headed to the country club early for photos. Are you sure you don't want me in on whatever you plan? I smiled, straightening his tie. Trust me, honey. You'll want plausible deniability for this one. After he left, I called Claire. Is everything ready? All set, she confirmed. The package arrived this morning. Security has been briefed, and the photographer is in position. Though I still can't believe what you discovered about. Perfect. I cut her off, checking the time. I'll see you in a few hours. I spent the morning with my twins, taking them to their favorite park and then to lunch with my parents, who were also excluded from the wedding for daring to criticize Amanda's treatment of their grandchildren. At exactly 2:30 p.m., I received the text I'd been waiting for. "Showtime," Claire wrote. "You won't believe what just happened with the dress." I gathered my things, kissed my children goodbye, and headed to the country club. Amanda's perfect wedding was about to become unforgettable, but not for the reasons she planned. As I pulled into the parking lot, I could hear the commotion from inside. Claire met me at the side entrance, her eyes dancing with barely suppressed glee. "You're just in time," she whispered. "Hurricane Amanda is about to meet her match." I straightened my shoulders and walked toward the bridal suite, where my sister-in-law's shrill voice reached new octaves of panic. The perfect wedding she'd been bragging about was about to become a public lesson in karma, and I had a front-row seat to the show. "Someone get my brother's wife on the phone." Amanda's voice screeched from behind the door. "She's behind this. She has to be." I smoothed my pantsuit and checked my lipstick in a nearby mirror. It was time to make my entrance, and I intended to look flawless for the photos I knew would be taken. After all, some moments deserve to be perfectly preserved. The scene that greeted me in the bridal suite was pure chaos. Amanda stood in the middle of the room, her perfect wedding dress now sporting a very noticeable designer label, one that clearly showed it was a knockoff of the original she'd been bragging about. Not just any knockoff, but one that had been reported stolen from a boutique 2 states over. "This is impossible," she shrieked, mascara running down her face. "I bought this from a legitimate boutique that mysteriously went out of business the next day," I said from the doorway, making everyone turn. "How convenient." Amanda's face went from red to white in seconds. What did you do?" "Me? Nothing. However, it seems the country club has a strict policy about stolen merchandise on its premises. Something about their insurance liability." I glanced at Claire, who nodded professionally. "I'm afraid we'll have to contact the authorities," Claire said, holding up a tablet showing the police report about the stolen dress. "It's standard procedure." Margaret stepped forward, looking between us. "Amanda, is this true? Did you know the dress was stolen?" "Of course not," Amanda protested, but her voice wavered. "I got it at a discount because the seller needed to get rid of it quickly." I finished for her, before anyone realized it was part of a stolen shipment. The room fell silent except for Amanda's ragged breathing. The perfect wedding she planned was unraveling faster than the cheap stitching on her counterfeit dress. "You planned this," she hissed at me. "You ruined my wedding because I wouldn't let your bratty kids attend." I shook my head. "No, Amanda. You ruined your wedding. I just made sure the truth came out." And speaking of truth, I nodded to Claire, who pulled up security footage on her tablet. The video showed Amanda in the country club's storage room last week, deliberately damaging another bride's decorations, a bride whose wedding was scheduled for the following weekend. "You see," I explained calmly, "when you started badmouthing me to the staff here, they began paying close attention to your activities. Funny how karma works, isn't it?" The police arrived discreetly as requested. They needed to document the stolen dress and make statements about the vandalism. Amanda's perfect wedding dissolved into a public display of her true colors. "You can't do this to me," she screamed as the officers led her away for questioning. "This was supposed to be my perfect day." Tom appeared in the doorway, having heard the commotion. He took in the scene, his sister being escorted out, our mother in tears, and me standing calmly in the middle. "Liv?" he questioned softly. "Your sister made a choice," I said, taking his hand. "Several choices, starting with how she treated our children." Later that evening, as the guests departed and the country club staff cleared the untouched reception decorations, Margaret approached me. "I should have stopped her behavior years ago," she admitted. "The way she treated the twins, I was so worried about keeping the peace that I let her become a monster." I hugged my mother-in-law. It's never too late to start over. The following weekend, we hosted a family barbecue at our house. The twins ran and played freely, their laughter filling the air without fear of judgment. Even Margaret joined their games, looking younger and happier than she had in years. Tom wrapped his arm around me as we watched our real family enjoy the afternoon. "You know," he said, "this is pretty perfect." I smiled, thinking of Amanda facing charges for receiving stolen property and vandalism. She learned that true perfection isn't about appearances or sophisticated events. It's about love, acceptance, and karma served at precisely the right temperature. Yes, I agreed, watching Lucy and Jack chase their grandmother around the yard. This is exactly perfect. As for Amanda, last I heard, she was planning a much smaller wedding. After her court date, of course. I sent her a card with a simple message. Some things are worth more than perfection. Like family. Love, Olivia. I included a photo of our barbecue, showing the twins in joyful, noisy glory. After all, some lessons are best taught with a smile. That dangerous beast had to go. Margaret's voice dripped with self-righteousness as she stood in my living room, brazenly admitting to poisoning Max, my trained protection dog. He made my son uncomfortable. I had to protect my precious boy. I gripped the edge of my desk, steadying myself as I watched her on my laptop screen. The security footage showed her sneaking into my backyard at 2 a.m., tossing tainted meat over the fence. She didn't know that Max was trained to only eat from his designated bowl. The poison-laced steak lay untouched, evidence of her attempted crime. My name is Olivia Kane, and at 34, I'm a former military K-9 handler turned professional dog trainer. Max, my Belgian Malinois, wasn't just a pet. He was my partner, protector, and highly trained service animal who'd saved my life more times than I could count during my deployments. You tried to kill my dog, I said, my voice eerily calm as I continued watching her self-righteous confession. A trained service animal worth over $50,000. Margaret's face reddened. Don't be so dramatic. I just wanted to make him sick enough that you'd have to get rid of him. Daniel can't relax with that beast around. Daniel, my husband of 2 years, was Margaret's only child. She'd never approved of me, the rough military woman who'd stolen her precious boy. The fact that I now ran a successful protection dog training business only made her more resentful. Max is a highly trained protection dog, I explained for what felt like the 100th time. He's certified and insured and has never shown any aggression toward Daniel or anyone else without cause. He growled at me last week, Margaret protested, crossing her arms. Because you tried to hit me, I reminded her. He was doing his job. The incident she referred to happened during our last family dinner. Margaret took offense when I declined to let her redesign our home, raising her hand as if to slap me. Max merely stepped between us, a low warning growl letting her know such behavior wouldn't be tolerated. Well, it doesn't matter now, she said smugly. That meat should be working its way through his system. You'll have no choice but to put him down when he becomes aggressive from the poison. I felt a cold smile spread across my face. Max doesn't eat food from strangers, Margaret. It's part of his training. I turned my laptop around, showing her the security footage. But this video of you attempting to poison him? That's going to be very interesting to the police. The color drained from her face. You were recording me. I record everything. It comes from years of working with valuable service dogs. You'd be amazed how many people try to harm them out of ignorance or spite. You can't show that to anyone, she sputtered. I'm your mother-in-law. Think about what this would do to Daniel. I already have, I replied, pulling out my phone. He's watching this footage right now at work. He should be here any minute to deal with his mother, who just tried to kill his wife's service dog. As if on cue, the front door opened. Daniel stormed in, his face a mask of fury I'd never seen before. Mom, what have you done? Margaret turned to him, arms outstretched. Danny, I was trying to protect you. That dog is dangerous. The only dangerous person here is you, Daniel snapped. Max has protected both me and Olivia. He's family, and you just tried to kill him. But Danny, stop. Daniel's voice cracked like a whip. The police are on their way. You're going to be charged with attempted animal cruelty and trespassing. And after this, you're not welcome in our home anymore. I watched as Margaret's face crumpled, the reality of her situation finally sinking in. She'd been so convinced of her righteousness, so sure that her position as mother gave her the right to do anything she wanted. Now she was facing real consequences for her actions. The sound of police sirens grew closer, and Margaret's smug confidence wholly evaporated. She looked at me with genuine fear, finally realizing that her perfect plan had backfired spectacularly. Olivia, please, she begged. We can work this out. I'll apologize to the dog. His name is Max, I corrected her. And no, we can't work this out. You tried to kill a trained service animal because of your prejudices. There's no coming back from that. The next few weeks were a blur of legal proceedings and family drama. Margaret's arrest made local headlines. Mother-in-law attempts to poison service dog. The footage from my security cameras was damning, showing her not only tossing the poisoned meat, but also repeatedly casing our property in the days leading up to the incident. She'll likely face felony charges, Detective Torres explained during our follow-up meeting. Attempting to harm a service animal is taken very seriously in this state. The premeditation shown in your footage makes it worse. I sat in our living room, Max's head resting on my lap as I processed the information. Daniel paced nearby, still struggling with his mother's betrayal. I just can't believe she'd go this far, he muttered, running his hands through his hair. I mean, I knew she was controlling, but this? The evidence had revealed more than just the poisoning attempt. The police found receipts for the toxic substances in Margaret's purse, along with a detailed journal outlining her plans to free Daniel from that woman and her beast. She'd been plotting this for months. My phone buzzed with another message from Daniel's sister, Amanda. Mom's asking for character witnesses for her hearing. She says if we don't help, we're betraying the family. I showed Daniel the message, watching his face darken. She still doesn't get it, does she? He said, sitting heavily on the couch. She's the one who betrayed us. Max rose and moved to Daniel's side, gently placing his head on his knee. He'd started doing this more often since the incident, sensing Daniel's emotional turmoil. I watched as my husband automatically started scratching behind Max's ears, his tense shoulders relaxing slightly. You know what the worst part is? Daniel continued, looking down at Max. She kept saying she did this for me, but never asked how I felt about Max. He's been nothing but protective of both of us. He was right. Just last month, Max had alerted us to a potential break-in, his training kicking in when someone tried to force our back door. The would-be intruder fled when Max gave his warning bark, and the police later caught him trying to rob another house in the neighborhood. The preliminary hearing was set for next week, and Margaret's lawyer was already trying to spin the story. My client was acting out of maternal concern, he claimed to the local news. She genuinely believed the dog posed a threat. But the evidence told a different story. The security footage showed Margaret's calculated approach and smug expression as she tossed the poisoned meat. The journal entries detailed her resentment not just of Max but of me and my entire military background. A proper wife wouldn't keep such a dangerous animal, she'd written. Daniel deserves someone more refined, more suitable to our family's status. The support from the service dog community was overwhelming. Other handlers shared stories of family members who didn't understand or respect their dog's training. My business increased as people sought trainers who understood the importance of protecting these valuable animals. Even Daniel's extended family sided with us. His Aunt Susan, Margaret's sister, called to express her horror at her sister's actions. She's gone too far this time, Susan said. First trying to control Daniel's marriage, now this. She needs professional help. The stress was taking its toll on Daniel. He'd lost weight, and I often found him in the home office late at night, staring at old family photos. Max never left his side during these moments, his steady presence offering comfort when words failed. I keep thinking about all the times I made excuses for her behavior, Daniel confessed one night. The snide comments about your job, the constant criticism of our home, the way she tried to manipulate me against you. I should have put a stop to it sooner. I squeezed his hand. You're stopping it now. That's what matters. Margaret's attempts to contact us grew more desperate as the hearing approached. She sent tearful voicemails, written appeals, and even had friends try to ambush us at work to plead her case. Each attempt showed how little she understood the severity of her actions. The final straw came when she showed up at our house unannounced, violating her restraining order. Max alerted us to her presence before she could reach the door, his training again proving invaluable. The day of Margaret's hearing arrived with tension and relief. As we sat in the courthouse, Max at my feet in his service vest, I watched my mother-in-law enter in handcuffs. She looked smaller somehow, her usual imperious demeanor deflated by the reality of her situation. All rise, the bailiff called as Judge Anderson entered the courtroom. The evidence presentation was brief but damning. The security footage played on the courtroom screen, showing Margaret's calculated movements. Her journal entries were read aloud, revealing the depths of her prejudice and premeditation. When it was time for victim impact statements, Daniel stood. His voice shook slightly as he addressed the court. My mother didn't just try to harm a dog, he began. She tried to destroy my family. Max isn't just a trained service animal. He's part of our household. He's protected my wife and me and shown more loyalty than my mother ever has. Margaret's sob echoed through the courtroom, but Daniel continued. I'm asking the court to mandate psychiatric help as part of her sentence. This isn't just about the attempted poisoning. It's about years of controlling behavior that finally went too far. The judge's sentence was firm: 2 years probation, mandatory psychiatric counseling, a hefty fine to be paid to local service dog organizations, and a permanent restraining order preventing her from coming near our home or my training facility. Mrs. Wheeler, Judge Anderson addressed Margaret directly. You're fortunate the dog's training prevented your plan from succeeding. Had you managed to poison this animal, you'd be facing significant prison time. As we left the courthouse, reporters gathered outside asked for statements. I declined to comment, but Daniel paused. Sometimes the family you choose is more loyal than the family you're born with, he said, reaching down to pat Max's head. And sometimes it takes a crisis to show you who has your back. After the hearing, life settled into a new rhythm. My training business thrived, with Max becoming something of a local celebrity. We even started a program to help other service dog handlers deal with unsupportive family members. We received a letter from Margaret's therapist 6 months after the hearing. She was making progress, the therapist said, finally confronting her controlling behavior and its roots. She'd asked if we'd consider meeting with her in a controlled therapeutic setting. Daniel and I discussed it over dinner, Max watching us with his usual quiet attention. What do you think, Poi? I asked him. Max tilted his head, then went to fetch his leash, his usual signal that everything would be okay if we faced it together. The meeting was set for a neutral location, her therapist's office. Margaret looked different, more subdued. Her hands trembled as she spoke. I've been doing a lot of work in therapy, she began. Learning about boundaries, about respecting other people's choices. I realize now that my behavior wasn't just wrong, it was cruel. She turned to me directly. Olivia, I didn't just try to harm Max. I tried to destroy something precious to you and Daniel because I couldn't control it. I'm deeply sorry. Looking at her then, I saw something I'd never seen before. Genuine remorse. Not manipulation, not performance, but an accurate understanding of the pain she caused. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she continued. I'm not even asking to be part of your lives again. I just wanted you to know that I understand now why what I did was so terrible. Daniel reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. Thank you for that, Mom, he said quietly. That's the most honest thing you've ever told us. We left the meeting with no promises made, but something had shifted. It wasn't forgiveness. What Margaret had done was too serious for that. But it was acknowledgement, recognition that change, while difficult, was possible. A year after the incident, our lives had transformed. The training center had expanded with a unique program for families learning to integrate service dogs into their homes. Daniel had become an advocate for service animal protection laws, sharing our story to help strengthen legal consequences for those who harm working dogs. One evening, as we sat on our back porch watching Max play in the yard, Daniel turned to me. You know, when Mom started acting out against Max, I worried about choosing between my family and my wife. I never realized I wasn't choosing between them at all. I was choosing between toxic control and healthy love. I leaned against him, watching Max patrol his territory with the same dedication he'd always shown. Sometimes the best family members have 4 legs, I replied. He laughed, pulling me closer, and sometimes they teach us more about loyalty than any human ever could. Max trotted over, resting his head on Daniel's knee as if agreeing. He was more than just a service dog, more than just a pet. He was the catalyst that exposed the poison in our family dynamics and the strength that helped us build something better from the ruins. As the sun set over our yard, I thought about how life's biggest lessons sometimes come from unexpected sources. In trying to destroy what she didn't understand, Margaret had inadvertently strengthened our family's bonds. And Max, the dangerous beast she feared so much, had shown more wisdom and grace than she ever had. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge, it's living well, surrounded by love in all its forms, even those with 4 legs and a wagging tail.